This unit is going to talk about processing errors, and processing problems can give you a non-diagnostic radiograph. And if the radiograph is non-diagnostic, it could result in a retake. So now, again, you've given that patient extra radiation. So we need to pay attention when we are developing our films or processing our films. And this is the traditional way. This is using your developer and fixer, using the water, and then allowing the film to dry, whether it is automatic or whether it is manual. Some of these errors are eliminated because the manual processing is pretty much a thing of the past. And a lot of these errors then even further are eliminated because of digital radiographs. So we're going to go through a bunch of different errors here. And many of these errors can be caused by one or more things. So we're going to run through the list of things that could potentially have caused the error on the slide. And the first one we have is an underdeveloped film. So as you can see, an underdeveloped film is going to appear light, and it could have been caused by inadequate development time, hence the term underdeveloped. The developer solution could have been too cool, or it could have been in for an inaccurate time, or your developer solution is depleted. So you need to go ahead and replenish that developer solution. Next, we have an overdeveloped film, which is basically the exact opposite of everything we just said. So an overdeveloped film is dark. It is excessive developing time, so you left it in there too long, or the developer solution is too hot, the time or temperature was inaccurate, or the concentration of the developer solution was too much, so you'll need to dilute it a little bit more to fix that problem. The next error is called reticulation of emulsion. And it looks like this film has little tiny cracks on it, looks kind of fuzzy. And this is caused by sudden temperature change between the developer and the water solution or the water bath. You always want to check the temperatures. You don't want there to be too drastic of a temperature change. This is exactly what will happen if you take it from a solution that may be too hot to one that's too cold. Everything has that perfect temperature that it needs to operate at. When manual processing, or even the automatic processor, you may have a film that comes out with dark spots. These are caused by the developer, and this is when developer comes into contact with the film prior to processing it. So maybe when you were replenishing or maybe not you, but whoever was replenishing the solutions, a little bit got on the workspace, no one wiped up the workspace, you set your films down. So now you have this contaminated film with developer spots on it. And then opposite of that is the white spots. That's going to be caused by fixer. So this is fixer coming in contact with the film prior to it being processed. So similar scenario. Someone's replenishing the solutions, fixer gets on the workspace, it's not wiped up, someone sets the films down, it's developed, it's processed, and we have white spots on the film. Next is a yellow-brown film. So this would have kind of a yellowish brown color to it. What this is caused by is exhausted developer or fixer. So there's not enough of either of those chemicals or one or the other in the bin, whether it's your manual and you're using the dip tank and the dip tank is depleted, or your automatic processor. Another thing that can cause a yellowish brown colored film is not leaving it in the fixer long enough or not rinsing it well enough. So if you're doing a rinse, if you're doing a manual rinse, you're going to rinse for 20 minutes. You need to make sure all of those chemicals are off before you move on to the next step. This film with a straight white border across the top is developer cut off. So that's an undeveloped portion of the film. Your level of developer, again, depleted. Your level is too low, so the entire film was not immersed in it. Therefore, it was not completely developed. Same thing with the fixer. This is fixer cut off, but it's a straight black border. Same thing, your levels of fixer solution were too low, so the entire film was not submerged in the fixer. So that is an unfixed portion of the film. That black spot is an unfixed portion of the film. This one's pretty simple. This is an overlapped film. And you'll see white or dark areas where the film is overlapped. So right where this line is being drawn, everything above it, that's another film. So while you were running them through the automatic processor or while they were being placed in the tank, they just kind of crisscross paths, and now we have some overlap. The next thing we have is an air bubble. Those air bubbles are going to appear as white spots. So here's one, and I'll remove the mark, but here's one. That's going to be your air bubble spot. This happens because air gets trapped on the film surface sometimes after it's placed in the processing solutions. So when you are manually processing, you'll hear people talk about agitate it. You've got to agitate the films. Just gently shake it, and that will help remove any air bubbles from the film. And here we have a fingernail artifact. Right above that, that little black sort of crescent moon, that's caused by a fingernail. And this has caused the film emulsion to be damaged. So maybe someone who has big, thick acrylic nails or just really long nails in general squeezed a little too hard on the film and scratched the emulsion off. This is considered rough handling. So gently handle the films, and you only want to touch the films by the edges only. If you touch it in the middle of the film, you can cause a fingerprint. So in this area, again, I'll remove the markings, but in this area, if you look closely, you can see the pattern of a fingerprint. And this is film that touched this is fingers that touched the film that may have been contaminated with something, maybe fluoride or maybe developer was on their fingers. Just make sure to fix this error, you wash your hands thoroughly before you handle the film. This crazy looking film, this is static electricity. Those are thin black lines, kind of looks like blood vessels going all over the place. Those are your static electricity marks, and this happens when a film is opened too quickly. Or you know how when you walk across carpets sometimes and then you touch something and it zaps you or you zap somebody else? You can do that to the film essentially. If you are in carpeted area and then you touch the film and you haven't touched anything to reduce that static electricity, your film will come out looking like this. This is a scratched film. All those little white lines, those are scratches. Again, emulsion was removed by some kind of sharp object. Maybe it was a pencil, paper clip, um, something scratched against it and removed that emulsion. So this is why it's so important with your traditional type of film that you are carefully handling it. Be aware of what you're doing at all times. Then we have a light leak. The exposed black area. So all of this corner was caused by a light leak. It was probably an accidental exposure, but it was exposed to white light. So you're in the dark room, someone doesn't know you're in the dark room, they open up the door, that white light from the outside comes into the dark room, your film gets accidentally exposed. Also, it could have been a defect in the film. Maybe there was a small crack or a small opening somewhere in that film envelope. could have had the same result. Next, we have a fogged film. It's gray, it's kind of blurry, the details aren't quite as sharp, there's limited contrast. This can be caused by a number of things. Improper safe lighting. So there's that safe light test that needs to be done. If that safe light is not working properly, this could result to your film. There's a light leak in the darkroom. Any little trace amount of white light can cause your films to be undiagnostic. If the film is outdated, checking the expiration dates constantly on your box of films. A lot of offices, if they're still using the traditional film, they go through it fast enough that this isn't generally an issue, but outdated film can cause a fogged film. Improper film storage. If it's too humid, if it's too hot in the storage room, fogged film. Contaminated solutions. So if there's any dirt in the tanks, if maybe fixer got in with the developer, vice versa, if your solutions aren't strong enough or if they're contaminated by anything, it could lead to a fogged film. And then the developer solution was too hot. So if that developer temperature is not correct, it could lead to a fogged film. This is a film that was prolonged wash cycle. So it was left in the wash too long. It was left in that water for too long and it has washed away too many crystals. And so what we're left with is this sort of broken down, kind of sloppy looking, distorted film. So for our little review, a film with a straight white border across the top is a result of A, exposed to white light, B, inefficient developer solution, C, inefficient fixer solution, or D, exposed to the safe light. B, inefficient developer solution. This is an undeveloped portion of the film. Air bubbles will appear on a film as A, tiny white dots, B, a black crescent moon shape, C, a straight white border, or D, a straight black border. A, tiny white dots. A fingernail artifact will appear as A, tiny white dots, B, a black crescent moon shape, C, straight white border, D, straight black border. B, a black crescent moon shape. And last, a portion of the film will appear black if it A, has been scratched, B, has been in contact with fixer prior to processing, C, has been exposed to white light, or D, has been underdeveloped. C, has been exposed to white light.